Thank you for joining us today. We will get started in just a few minutes as our participants have a chance to log on. So please hold tight for just another minute or two, and then we will get started. I see our participants number rapidly going up. So as soon as that levels off a little bit, then we will kick off with our panelists. Just another minute or so, and we will get started. All right, it looks like we have a fair number of participants, so let's get started. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is John Westcott. I will be moderating today. I am the Senior Vice President of Alliances and Marketing at Zixi. I am joined by David Griggs, who is the Senior Product Manager at AWS, and Tim Baldwin, Head of Product at Zixi, who will provide an overview of MediaConnect and demonstrate how to create MediaConnect Flows, assign contribution inputs and delivery outputs, and monitor stream statistics from the Zixi ZEN Master control plane. A little bit about David Griggs, having held several senior positions at Evolution Broadcast and Grass Valley before joining AWS Elemental. David has developed a deep industry expertise in product development, software engineering, and product management in the broadcast industry. He has a proven track record of strong leadership, delivering complex solutions on time and on budget. And I would also add with Zixi, a great deal of collaboration. Tim Baldwin has more than 20 years in engineering, product, and marketing roles in media and computer hardware technology companies. Before joining Zixi, Tim developed and managed the integration of Brightcove's OnLive video platform with both enterprise content management systems and enterprise content delivery networks. Prior to Brightcove, Tim played an instrumental role in developing and deploying encoding and streaming technologies and services at Kulibyte and Haivision. At Zixi, Tim leads the product management team and drives the product vision, strategy, and roadmap. So today we will be having an overview of AWS Elemental MediaConnect, also Zixi and Zixi ZEN Master. We'll talk about the AWS and ZEN Master integration. And then Tim Baldwin will give us a demo showing how to set up MediaConnect Flows in ZEN Master before we move on to QA. We're also going to have a couple of polls asking about your impressions of the products and the media industry. And I am launching the first right now. And then at the end, we will take your questions. So please put them into the Q&A bar, and we will answer them, as many of them as possible within the hour. And if we aren't able to get to your question, then we will follow up with an email. We get to capture all of those, and so we'll follow up after the presentation. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to David Griggs. to give us a little bit about AWS Elemental MediaConnect.
Thanks, John. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Firstly, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy days to spend some time here with us with AWS and Zixi to talk about a very exciting topic, I think, from my perspective. This is something that has really been a vision, I think, for a long time, and I'm just thrilled to see this tighter integration between MediaConnect and Zixi's ZEN Master product. And I think what you're going to see today, I hope will show you how far Zixi has come with this initiative. But I think before we get into the sort of exciting stuff in the demo, I wanted to just spend a little bit of time just introducing you to MediaConnect. I'm not sure if everybody who is participating in this webinar has come across MediaConnect before. Definitely not a sales pitch. I just want to give you a quick overview of what the product is and how we see it, particularly how we see it also in some of these hybrid environments where it's very much a combination of MediaConnect and Zixi infrastructure. So MediaConnect began its journey back in 2016 when AWS acquired Elemental. Our first real initiative coming out of the acquisition was to take our products that we've been developing for many years, mostly in the encoding space and packaging space, and create native AWS services, and we did that. We launched those at our AWS conference called reInvent in 2016. In 2017, I apologize. And then we realized quite quickly that whilst we built this set of services in the cloud, we didn't really have a strong story around contribution. How do we actually get content from, particularly live content? We're talking here mezzanine quality, of course. How do we get live content from an on-prem location into the cloud in the first place? And it was there that really MediaConnect, the idea of MediaConnect, was born. We needed a way to securely, reliably, and cost effectively get content from locations on-prem and into the cloud. And next slide, John, if you wouldn't mind. And so that really gave birth, as I say, to this top use case here, what we call contribution. MediaConnect really was sort of born out of this idea. But as we began to sort of flesh out the product and we began to think in more broader terms about the usability of transport stream over IP, it became clear to us that there was a second use case that is also very exciting. The world is changing when it comes to the way we share live video. Some of the old and long-held paradigms are beginning to shift. And we saw an opportunity in collaboration with our friends and partners at Zixi to look at this second use case, what we call distribution. And that, in case it's not clear, is just really moving content from A to B using the AWS network and the AWS backbone as the conduit for moving transport stream, high quality video, mezzanine quality video from A to B. So MediaConnect is really designed to facilitate both of these workflows. And of course, most workflows are a combination of both. Rarely are they just one. That said, this is very much a B2B, as I'm sure most of you will be familiar with on attending this webinar. These workflows are very much are not really about end secondary distribution or end consumer consumption. These are B2B distributions of, in fact, contribution as well, of live mezzanine quality, sort of lightly compressed, mezzanine quality live video. So these are the two use cases that MediaConnect works in today. I would say a large amount of our business today is in the contribution use case, and we're starting to really build out that distribution. As I say, that market segment is changing, and we're seeing a big shift for many reasons, away from traditional satellite infrastructure and to some extent fiber as well, over to the use of unmanaged and managed networks like the internet and the AWS cloud. Next slide, please, John. So if you're going to build a service like this in the AWS cloud, you generally need to address some very critical tenets. And I just wanted to go quickly through the things that we considered when building MediaConnect. And I think number one, unsurprisingly, is reliability. UDP is not a particularly reliable protocol, but it is fast. And we like it for that reason, but not so much for its ability to deliver content or deliver packets in a high quality way. So in order to get the best of both worlds, you need to introduce a quality of service layer into any TS over IP service. And we kind of, as we were building this service, we kind of surveyed the landscape. And of course, you know, being AWS, one of the questions that we had to answer was, well, should we build our own ARQ based, you know, Amazon reliable video protocol? And I think fortunately and correctly, we decided no. And we decided that we would partner with our friends at Zixi at this, because for a number of reasons, but mostly because it works, and it's good, and it's mature, and it's well established, not only in broadcast workflows, but also in equipment vendors. There are lots of vendors out there who have implemented the Zixi software stack directly into their appliances and equipment. For example, cameras, and also things like IRDs and receivers, etc. So we saw this as a real advantage, and not needing to compete directly with that, and rather to embrace that, we decided that we would make MediaConnect a native part of the Zixi ecosystem. And that was a good decision, and we were very happy with that, and we continue to be very happy with that. So obviously there are a number of QoS type protocols out there, but they all generally bring a level of agnosticism around the first and last mile when you're talking about at least the AWS use case. So this is really useful, because not everybody has a direct connect or a piece of managed fiber that connects their data center to the cloud. And so when you're talking about a MediaConnect use case, having something like Zixi protocol really gives our customers the flexibility to work with both managed, in other words, fiber-based contribution to the cloud in the first or last mile, but also being able to work with things like the internet, which is really useful, particularly for mobile applications. You know, we have customers that, one particular customer whose occupation is to follow rock bands around, and depending on the venue, they either get, you know, a really decent piece of fiber connection or a Wi-Fi password. And Zixi protocol gives us the flexibility to operate in those challenging environments. I put this last point on here because people often ask about the codec compatibility. So MediaConnect is a transport stream compatible service. So if your content is in MPEG transport stream compatible, then we can handle it. And to a large extent, we don't really care about the codec underneath. I say to a large extent because some codecs clearly, particularly the intra-frame only codecs, drive up bit rates to very high values. But we're testing now with HEVC and AVC codecs, you know, right across the 4K down through 1080p, 720p. Workflows, and we really have got broad support for these higher bit rate standards like UHD. Next slide, please. So security, obviously another important consideration when moving content owners' valuable content around. You know, we're talking about live mezzanine quality streams here that represent some of the biggest sporting rights in the world, and clearly customers want to make sure that content isn't going to be traveling long distances in the clear. So for us, this really means that, you know, industry standard AES remains the dominant standard for payload encryption, and of course MediaConnect supports that up to 256 bit key depth. This slide, I think, is just generally talking about the AWS message. You know, I think you could probably put this up for any of our services, but this is really what we believe we bring to this transport stream over IP ecosystem. First of all, it's a managed service. This really just means things like it's serverless. You're not creating EC2 instances. You're not having to manage a fleet of instances. We take care of things like the auto scaling and self-healing should there be an issue with an underlying instance. So it becomes less of a fleet management and more of a service management type operation. Obviously, one of the nice things about serverless architecture is that you can deploy You can deploy instances very quickly. So setting up a international distribution from, say, Sydney, Australia to London, United Kingdom, you could do it in just a few minutes and a few clicks. So very easy to configure and manage. And then, of course, the pay-as-you-go model, which AWS has kind of made a stake in the ground for over many years now, where you aren't investing huge amounts of money in capital infrastructure. Next slide, please, Tom. And this one's an important one, and I think this kind of ties in and nicely segues into the main part of our webinar today, which is really about transparency and measurability of these workflows. Obviously, if our customers are entrusting the AWS network and the AWS cloud with their valuable content, they would like some way to be able to monitor how that is performing. And so clearly we need to publish metrics about the performance of our MediaConnect workflows. And we do that, of course, through our own dashboard and monitoring system, CloudWatch, but importantly, as that is a conduit into the ZEN Master. But I don't want to steal any of Tim's thunder here, so I'm going to hold off on that part. But yes, so obviously we publish not just network related metrics, things about ARQ statistics, FEC ratios, etc. But also we take the TR101, 290 priority 1 and 2 alarms, and we also publish those. So a good amount of visibility on a MediaConnect flow by flow basis of how any given contribution or distribution workflow is performing. So with that, I think I'm going to hand over to Tim. We will be having a Q&A at the end here, and I'm happy to answer any questions about this part of the presentation.
Okay, thanks, David. Thanks everyone for joining. I'd like to start by providing some background on Zixi, and then we'll jump into the integration. So Zixi provides a cloud-based and on-premise software-defined video platform. It transports broadcast quality live video over all IP and hybrid IP networks, and enables our customers to provision and manage and deploy over 10,000 live linear channels, as well as live events. It supports all major protocols and is used around the world by broadcasters, OTT providers, and service providers in over 100 countries, with, at the moment, about 80,000 active endpoints. Video transport and delivery over IP, in our mind, is doing to video broadcast infrastructure what cloud computing did to compute infrastructure, meaning that video transport is no longer tied to specific hardware or expensive infrastructure available to only a handful of organizations. Instead, video transport is now flexible and is accessible with numerous options and cost models, but all the while still has the reliability and security required for premium content. So with this, Zixi is enabling broadcasters to do things at scale that wasn't possible even 2 years ago in the broadcast world. It allows them to save money, it allows them to be more flexible, it allows them to connect to places that they can't normally get to or were previously too expensive to get to. Okay, next slide. Broadcast quality live video contribution, transport, and delivery over IP is the problem Zixi is solving for our clients. And we do this by bringing hardware and software and cloud solutions all under one platform. Zixi has built and assembled a software-defined video platform consisting of a tight integration of 4 crucial elements. First are the protocols, including the time-tested Zixi protocol, which has been in mission-critical use for a decade, as well as newer protocols such as RIST and SRT, protocols used for live productions such as NDI, and of course common industry protocols such as RTP, RTMP, HLS, and DASH. In total, we support 16 different protocols. The second piece is the Zixi Video Solution Stack, which is the software that manages all the protocols and collects analytics and layers intelligence on top of the protocols, such as bonding and hitless failover. The third component is ZEN Master. This is our control plane that allows you to intelligently provision and deploy and manage and monitor thousands of content channels across your Zixi-enabled network. And fourth, as David mentioned already, is all of the Zixi-enabled devices that already exist around the world. Next slide. At Zixi, we've been partnering and serving many of the leading companies in the broadcast media industry. And because of the demonstrated performance of our protocols and software stack and management and the Zixi-enabled devices, they trust us to deliver over 10,000 live linear channels across the globe. Next slide. We deliver video to over 100 countries and have an unmatched global network of partners and service providers that can deliver video anywhere in the world. Next slide. In this diagram, we see a graphical view of Zixi-enabled workflows, starting from contribution from encoders and playout devices on the left, up to cloud ingest and transcoding and packaging, and then delivery to CDN origins and OTT providers and endpoint devices on the right. Along the bottom, we also see something that's becoming quite popular lately, which is live editing and live clipping for social media. So all of these components we are integrated into, have Zixi integrations and, and help fill out and help create a workflow that's quite solid and complete for our customers. Now let's take a deeper look at the integration of ZEN Master and AWS Elemental MediaConnect. By integrating MediaConnect into ZEN Master, AWS customers benefit from many of the features ZEN Master already provides to our existing customers, including monitoring and alerts and reporting and remote access of those Zixi-enabled network devices like encoders and IRDs. We'll see some of this in the demo. Next slide. MediaConnect customers will also have access to scheduling and automation capabilities, as well as the ZEN Master API, which can be used to integrate ZEN Master into existing workflows. And next slide, visibility for all the components in the workflow. Next slide. Adding Zixi broadcasters into a MediaConnect workflow being managed by ZEN Master can also unlock some additional features, including thumbnail monitoring, and PID visibility, and estimated PSNR, content quality analysis, and more. So we'll see some of this in the demo as well. Next slide.
So as we go into Tim's demo, I'd like to remind everybody to submit questions so that David and Tim can answer them once we are done.
Okay, so this is just, I just want to give a little quick overview of the types of things that I want to look at in the demo. So we're going to look at a variety of MediaConnect flows that have been set up in ZEN Master with different types of sources and targets. We'll look at the historical data of that's being monitored by ZEN Master, including bit rates of the streams and TR101 analysis, recovered, not recovered packets, things like that. I'll show you how to set up a new source from a Zixi feeder and spin up a MediaConnect flow, attach that source, and then set up a target with the Zixi receiver and attach that to the MediaConnect flow. And then we'll also look at some of our grid and thumbnail monitoring capabilities for MediaConnect flows. So now let's switch over to me sharing the screen. John, if you want to release, and I'll share. Okay, John, can you confirm you can see?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first, let me start with some nomenclature just to make sure we're all on the same page. So what we're looking at here is the ZEN Master web-based UI. And the first thing I want to describe is, if you see where the what's highlighted here are feeders. Feeders and broadcasters and receivers are let's say physical software elements. So a feeder takes in a stream from a local network, let's say, or is embedded into a device like an Elemental Live encoder, for instance, and then pushes that stream up to a broadcaster, which is hosted in the cloud or in a data center. And then the broadcaster sends that stream to one or many Zixi receivers, which is also software that's sitting on premise somewhere, and it may be standalone software or may be embedded into an IRD like a Cinemedia IRD. So feeders and broadcasters receivers are physical software components. And then we have the concept of sources and channels and targets. So these are let's say, logical components. Inside ZEN Master, a source is a particular stream from a feeder. That feeder might have 50 streams running through it, but the source represents one of those streams as a logical element. And then a channel is a logical, let's say, distribution element for that stream. And then a target is a logical endpoint for the stream. So just want to make sure that when I'm jumping around between feeders, broadcasters, receivers, and sources, channels, and targets, we understand the kind of the difference. So where I want to start is I created some MediaConnect flows already that I want to look at first, and then we can talk about how to set up the flow. So let's just go in order. So the first flow I set up here, I call a broadcaster flow. But the scenario behind this flow is, imagine you have you're on premise in let's say South America, and you have content that you want to be able to distribute. What you have on premise is high bitrate MPEG-2. So in this situation, what you might do is put a Zixi broadcaster, put the Zixi broadcaster software on premise, pull in that MPEG-2, transcode into H.264 or H.265, and then push that up to MediaConnect. And then once it's in MediaConnect, push that out to various types of targets. So if you look at the diagram there, I have a couple different targets there. I have a Media Live target. So this is where MediaConnect is sending that stream over to Media Live for transcoding and packaging. You could also send that stream to mobile player devices for or VLC players for a monitoring perspective. That's not how you, like David mentioned before, this when you're doing B to C, you're gonna be distributing through, you're gonna transcode and package and distribute through HLS and Dash workflows. So here, this is a B2B workflow. So you might have something like VLC you're using to monitor that stream. And then I also show the stream being pushed out to an IRD target. In that case, like a Send Media IRD. Just as a quick aside, for the Media Live target, what I want to show is just, okay, so here we have in this case, what we're sending to Media Live will be RTP-FEC. So we have the IP address that we're sending. And if you jump into the Media Live where you define your input for Media Live workflow, you'll see the same IP address. So just to show you kind of a link between what we're doing inside ZEN Master and Media Live. So let's go back to channels, and I just want to describe a few more channels. So this channel is an elemental encoder, and the elemental live encoders have Zixi built in, and I can actually, from within ZEN Master, I can open up the elemental UI. So that's one of the nice things about ZEN Master is that you can, from within ZEN Master, you can access your feeders and receivers through their local UIs. Hopefully this will load pretty soon. Maybe I'll come back to that in a moment. So let's look at some of the other channels we have set up. This channel is a Zixi feeder. So when might you use a Zixi feeder? Let's imagine you have an encoder that doesn't have Zixi built in, or maybe a playout server that doesn't have Zixi built in, but you want to be able to send that content up to MediaConnect. So in that case, what you'll do is you'll run the Zixi feeder side by side on the local network, and just take a UDP feed out of your playout server right into the Zixi feeder, and then from the Zixi feeder, you push up to MediaConnect. So that's what this example looks like. And then the last example is a a mobile device. So in this case, it's an iPad I have sitting in the office here pointing out the window, and it's using the Zixi on-air app that you can get from the app stores, and it's pushing that stream up to MediaConnect directly. So those are the various examples of types of flows, and we talked about types of targets. So now let's talk about the types of monitoring that we can do on MediaConnect Flows. So for monitoring, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the source. So remember, a source is the logical representation of a source stream. So let's maybe look at the source stream from the iPad. Okay, so the types of things types of data you're getting from this, you get TR101 data. We can see in this particular stream we've had a fair amount of CC errors. And then we have history graphs of certain types of data. So for instance, we can focus in on the CC errors and see when those have occurred. We can focus in on the historical bit rate of this stream. This iPad was sitting in the window overnight. So overnight, its bit rate was quite constant. And then once the sun came up, the bit rate became more variable. Down below under network, this is where we can look at the quality of delivery from that iPad up to MediaConnect. So we see this is showing the number of recovered packets. And then what's more important is if there's any not recovered packets, which it's been pretty clean. We had a little blip there, and then reconnection. So if the device that's feeding your stream up is disconnected from the network and needing to reconnect, you would see that here as well. And then you can also see round trip times between that feeding device and MediaConnect. So we have the historical data about the streams, and then we also have the events are kept. And these events can be things like CC errors or the source being not connected. You can manage these types of events to decide. You can decide if you want these events to alert you or not, and if you do want them to alert you, then you can, when you manage that type of event, you can have it alert you, or there may be some types of events that you want to ignore. That for a particular stream from a particular source, you're always going to have a certain type of error, and it's not a problem. And this history is kept for all this history, all the data that we're looking at here, the events, the other data, is all kept in the database for a year's time. So you can always go back and look at what's happened in the past. Let's see, what else? Events and history. Okay, so I think we've covered the interesting types of things that you can look at. So the next thing is, let's actually set up a new flow. So let's imagine I have a feeder somewhere already configured with a stream on it, and I have a receiver. In this example, like imagine you want to send a stream up to an OTT provider, an MVPD, or maybe you want to send that stream to 50 of them, something like that. So first thing we're going to do is create a new MediaConnect flow. And in the ZEN Master nomenclature, MediaConnect flows look like channels. So in ZEN Master, we use the name channel, but that's what it looks like here. So let's add a new MediaConnect flow. Okay, let's give it a name, and I'm just trying to make names kind of descriptive. Okay, and then type this, and then I'll explain what this is. Within ZEN Master, there's a really advanced way to set up user groups and roles and access tags, so that even within a large organization with a lot of users, you can tightly define which users have access to which content. So there may be a lot of different content flowing or being managed by ZEN Master, but a particular user may only have access and visibility to a certain part of the content. In this case, I'm using access tags to just, when we go back and look at sources and when we look at the list, just to keep the list only showing the things that we're interested in. Okay, so we're creating a flow. I need to choose an AWS account that I've connected to ZEN Master, choose a region, choose a zone. And in this case, my source isn't created yet, so I'm just going to save this flow. Now I'm going to jump over and create a source. So now remember, a source is a logical representation of a stream that's coming from a feeder. So we are going to create a MediaConnect source. Let's see, Zixi feeder source 2. Okay, this is coming from a feeder. The source, when we define the source, this source could be coming from a Zixi broadcaster, or it could be coming from an other, which is any device that can send a Zixi stream. In this case, I have a proper Zixi feeder, so I can actually select my feeder that's already being managed inside of ZEN Master. And then, like I mentioned before, a feeder can have multiple streams running through it. I'm going to choose the one stream that I'm interested in pulling in for this source. And then I'm going to choose the MediaConnect flow. So let's see, Zixi feeder flow 2. That's the flow we just created. Once again, using access tags just to keep everything kind of tight. When you set up a flow in MediaConnect, you need to whitelist where that stream is coming from. So that's what we're doing here. And then you can define the latency target that you want from that feeder up to MediaConnect. Finally, max bit rate, and then let me hit save. Okay, so now we have this source, this feeder source 2 connected to feeder flow 2. And now I'm going to jump over to feeder flow 2 and connect it to a target. So this is how you assign where you want that stream to go after it hits MediaConnect. So I'm going to assign a target and select a target. Let's see, media receiver target 2, assign. And you can select many targets. So I think currently what's implemented on MediaConnect is 50 targets per flow, or 50 outputs per flow. Now, if I jump over to the target, okay, so this is the target, and then I can actually pull up the UI for the Zixi receiver, remotely. So back on what I was trying to mention earlier with the elemental encoder is within ZEN Master you can manage remote devices that are on, of course, completely different networks, and you can manage them remotely. So this allows us to see what's happening on that receiver. Okay, so we set up the flow. Now it's going to take a moment for everything to get up and running. From within ZEN Master, we make API calls over to MediaConnect, and everything spins up, and then we start collecting data from CloudWatch. So it takes a minute for that to spin up. So while that's happening, the next thing I wanted to show is how you monitor a large number of channels. So let's look at grids, and let me just show these are not MediaConnect channels, but grids is a way to monitor many channels. You may have, like imagine this on your screen in a NOC up on the wall, and you have hundreds of channels that you're watching and monitoring. So that's the purpose of grids. You can define what information you want to see. Here what we have it doing is automatically cycling. So we say, okay, in this case we have it set to 40 sources per screen, and then we have it cycling through. Let's see, we might have a few other examples. Okay, so here's one where we have it showing 100 sources per screen, and then it's cycling every 10 seconds. So conceptually, this is what grids are for. It's to make it really easy to monitor lots of channels of content. And if any of the channels are in error state, then you can have those sorted so that they show, they bubble up to the top of the list. So now let's go look at our MediaConnect sources. So of course we just had a handful there, and there's two types of sources that I have set up. I actually have I have MediaConnect sources that that are defined, that are basically just using MediaConnect. And then the other thing I've done is, back in the slides, one of the things I mentioned is if you add a Zixi broadcaster into your workflow, you can unlock some other features that aren't that we don't have access to natively in ZEN Master. So let me show what I mean by that. So if we go back to sources, if we look at the source types here, the ones that say to MediaConnect, those are those sources and flows are being managed by ZEN Master, like the one we just created. But then what I've also done is I've created a monitoring source from each of those sources where I pull that content into Zixi Broadcaster. And once I do that, I can show you some of the other information that gets unlocked. For one item is preview. So we get thumbnails. You can look at the PID information for the video stream. There are some additional types of analytics that we get. So what we call content quality analysis. So here we are detecting things like blank picture, frozen video, audio clipping, silent audio, and as well as EPSNR. So this stream actually is a pretty good stream. Let me find a stream that has that may have some interesting things to look at. So this is the content that's coming from the iPad that's sitting in the window. And just waiting for the content analysis to load. Okay, so let's, for instance, EPSNR. So one thing that we that's built into the broadcaster is being able to estimate PSNR. So normally PSNR, you need a reference. We have a machine learning technique we used so that we can estimate PSNR. And so we see on the graph here, we have, this is the estimated PSNR. The reason it changed so drastically is when it went from dark to light, the encoder on that iPad, was, had a definite change. Let's see, silent audio. I think the audio is actually turned off. The microphones on that iPad are turned off. So we're getting a lot of silent audio alerts. But I don't think we were getting any other alerts. So just to kind of wrap, go back a little higher level, what we're doing here is we have MediaConnect sources and flows that we're managing within ZEN Master, but then if we employ a broadcaster in the workflow, and that broadcaster could either be at an origin, like that very first use case I talked about, where we're transcoding on-premise from MPEG-2 down to a lower bit rate and then sending that up. That's one way to have a broadcaster in a workflow on the contribution side, or broadcaster can just be sitting on, kind of on the side. If we have a broadcaster sitting in the workflow, that we can then pull those streams into the broadcaster, and you get some additional types of analysis that aren't natively available in our MediaConnect integration right now. Okay, so with that said, now if we go back to our grids, what we looked at earlier, this is just the status type grid. It's either in good shape or it's in bad shape. This first source has a lot of CC errors intentionally, so we have something to look at. But another type of grid that we can show is a thumbnail grid. So so depending on your use case, you may want to have thumbnails up on your monitors in your NOC, or you may want to have just status, red, yellow, green kind of status, or maybe you have a window with both. But the idea here is within ZEN Master, we're giving you the ability to do both of those things. See all of your channels of content in a compressed way. A lot of channels on one screen, and those could either be status only or can be thumbnails. So the last thing I want to do is just go back to that flow that we set up and look at the diagram. So now everything's in green except for the source, which is in yellow, and the reason why is because we have some CC errors. So we've so far in that source we've hit 5 CC errors, and I think that wraps up enough for the demo, and then we can go into Q&A and of course answer anything that comes up there as well.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you for the 96 people who answered the poll. We are going to end that one and also launch a new one as to how you would like people, the two companies, Zixi and Amazon, to follow up with you. So I have launched that, and now we will go into our Q&A section. And first, this is for Tim Baldwin and possibly David. Is there a reliable way to synchronize multiple feeds from a particular event at a destination consuming them?
Yes. So one of the benefits of the Zixi protocol is when you set the latency target, that becomes a top priority in the protocol. So if you have multiple streams that you want to synchronize, then the way you do that is to set the latency targets the same, and the protocol will adjust everything else that it needs to adjust to hit that target. So that may be things like either using more or less ARQ and more or less FEC, and in an extreme case, you will even end up dropping packets to meet the latency target that you want. So it's if you for your given scenario, if you really need that stream to hit every target at exactly the same time, then by setting the latency targets, the Zixi protocol will accomplish that no matter what. And and then it just depends on what trade-offs you want to make in terms of if you need that latency if you need the latency to be the same and be very low, then the protocol is having to make some more challenging trade-offs. If the latency target could be a little bit longer, then it becomes much easier. But the streams will hit all of those targets at the exact same time.
Okay, thank you, Tim. For David, is it possible for machine learning capabilities from AWS services to be integrated?
Wow, that's teed up a nice segue for me. I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. We have a number of interesting demos that we have on our booth at NAB, which of course is not going to be happening this year, but hopefully at IBC. And they do very simple things, like they look for specific events that might be occurring in the stream. So one common use case, I think, for machine learning in live video is automated metadata generation. And our demo, we have a number of them, but one of them is recognizing events in a sporting match. So in this case, it's a soccer game, football for the rest of the world, and it can detect goals and generate metadata about who scored based on the jersey number and stuff like that. Another interesting one we have, again, and one of the nice things I will say about having video in the cloud, whether it's running it on a broadcast or inside MediaConnect, is that you do then have the ability to add these additional services in. AWS is built as a series of Lego blocks that you can connect together. I mean, that's how we build solutions in the cloud, is by connecting these services. So machine learning is by no means an exception to that. And the other example we have is something called Transcribe, which can attempt to, it's essentially a voice to text machine learning algorithm that will pick up audio and generate text representations of that audio it detects. And then we have a demo that runs that through Translate and then gives real-time captioning in 5 different languages based on some uncaptioned content. With mixed results, as you can imagine. It's an emerging technology, but very much an exciting direction. So yeah, the short answer is absolutely yes. We see machine learning as being becoming more and more relevant in these live video workflows.
Thank you, David. We have a couple of questions about the cost and how the services are bundled. AWS MediaConnect is a service provided by and billed from Amazon Web Services, and ZEN Master is a complementary technology and product that would be contracted directly with Zixi. And you can follow up with either from the information that we've got on this slide, and you can also say in the poll how you specifically would like to be contacted, and we can personalize that for each person. We have more questions, a lot about ZEN Master. So back to Tim. Does ZEN Master support SAML for authentication?
Yeah, let me make sure I get. So we do have SSO integration. I believe right now it's LDAP and not SAML, but let's follow up on that afterwards. So if you have a way to, yeah,
We do.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Next, are the error conditions that are displayed in the grid view configurable? Can they be
yes.
set on a per channel basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different ways you can configure, like, how many times an event happens within a given period of time. So basically, it's all about how does a certain type of event escalate from being, how does that channel or that source escalate from being in a normal state to a warning state to an error state. And so that escalation process you can control both in defining how many times an event occurs and within what time range that will then cause it to escalate up. And you can also, and that can be done on a per source or per stream basis. You can also mute a particular type of error, on a particular stream. So there are a variety of ways to control the alerting, so that so that you're only seeing the alerts that you want to be seeing, and you're not seeing the noise. So short answer, yes, there is a way to do that.
And then another about ZEN Master: does the time code in green on the thumbnail grid in ZEN Master indicate the duration for which the stream was being monitored?
That's a good question. I think so. But I'm not positive. We'll have to go back and check on that.
Okay. We will follow up on that. We've got a few more. So we have a question from somebody that has a few encoders and receivers that have Zixi built in, and they want to know if by default that means that they have access to ZEN Master.
So they would still need to contract with Zixi to, to have access to the ZEN Master service. But once they do that, then yes, those feeders and receivers would be usable within workflows that you're managing in ZEN Master, including with MediaConnect.
Thank you. Are customers able to see the HEVC stream in thumbnail in ZEN Master?
I believe at the moment we are not decoding HEVC for thumbnails, but it's something that that's on our roadmap. But I think right now we're only decoding MPEG-2 and H.264 for the thumbnails themselves.
Okay, and then let's take one more question before we conclude. Synchronization will be supported only on the Zixi protocol, or can it be mixed and matched with RIST or RTSP, other protocols?
Okay. Yeah, so it's really only the Zixi protocol. I guess the reason is with the Zixi protocol, there's Zixi software sitting on both sides of that. And so, we have complete control of how that protocol is implemented. If you're ingesting or delivering SRT or RIST or RTP or whatever, in that case, there's only Zixi software sitting on one side of that connection, and so you can't do that negotiation, the necessary negotiation to meet a latency target that you would set. So I think having a latency target that is absolutely met is a distinction between the Zixi protocol and all of the other protocols.
All right. And I think we have time for one last one. On the monitoring grid, can the alarms trigger an email or an SMS?
Right now, the alarms are email-based, not SMS-based.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, David. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We've had a fair amount of people answer in the second poll how they would like to be contacted, and we'll leave that up for a few more minutes if anyone else wants to respond to that. Otherwise, please reach out to Zixi or AWS to learn more. We provided some email addresses here, also some links to more about the products that we've been talking about today, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So with that, we are coming up onto the top of the hour. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time and ask everybody that they stay safe in these unusual times.
And thanks, David, for your time as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Hope it was useful for everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.